What we have here is a little Asus E box. I believe the model number is EB1501P. This is something that I intercepted on its way to the trash. And I'm actually going to go ahead and put this into use as a server. Right now I'm just wiping the hard drive that it has in it. I ran dban on it and let that sit overnight, and it actually came back with a fail message. I'm not really sure why, but I think the reasoning why is because it's got some bad sectors. And what do you know, it's a Seagate hard drive. Why is anybody surprised? I wouldn't be using that anyway. I'm going to actually use this as my YouTube download server that I use to store YouTube videos offline for viewing and repeated viewing. I'm actually going to go ahead and throw an SSD into this because I've got a couple of these Pacer SSDs sitting around. I'm going to let that run all the way through, see what happens, and then I'm going to take this thing apart. This thing is a massive pain to take apart. And the other problem with it is that it actually runs quite hot. I was kind of surprised to see that. Just grab a thermometer here. You can see that it's not exactly cool running. So, right now the system in use is an ASRock S330, which is a much older platform than what this is. This is a little bit newer. Alright, taking this apart's a bit of a pain. You see there's a screw there, that has to come out. I don't even really know what the point of that screw is, but it's there. Covers those two screws, you pull those out, and that silver plastic thing comes off. Then you gotta pull out all the screws in the back. And that back piece comes off. And then you can pull the plastic apart, and it's got tabs in it that are a real pain to get out. And here we go with the cover taken off. You can see there's the cooling fan next to the heat pipe. The hard drive is here. 5400.6. I used to have a lot of these drives back in the late 2000s. I ended up getting a lot of these drives, and they didn't last very long. I remember having lots of problems with these. But it's basically when I went to Western Digital and never looked back. Was back when I had a whole bunch of these and they all just kept failing. It was just a pain. So I'm going to get that out. I'm going to get that SSD right here off of its little mounting bracket, and then I'm going to go ahead and install this. I think if I remember right, it's these two screws and then two screws on the bottom of the drive, because this isn't the full bracket. It's just screwed onto the back of the drive. Okay, so there's the hard drive removed out of its little bracket, which indeed is just basically just a handle at the back to allow you to pull it out. It's got this foam stuff. Almost thought that it was sticky for a second, but it's not. The first SSD I grabbed was 128 gig. This one's a 40. I'd rather use a 40 since it's basically going to get wasted anyway. I'm not going to be able to use the storage space, so having the smaller one is better. So I'm going to put that one in here, and we'll close this thing up and install the operating system. And there we go. It is in place. Now, this machine does have wireless capability. See, it's got a card installed right there, but the problem is that someone removed by force the antenna and broke the connector in the process, so I just pulled the connector right out. Normally it would go right there. And I just put a little bit of tape on the top of the little plate there. Basically, this is an I/O shield more than anything else. You could think of it like that. I don't think I ever really went over why I am even doing this in the first place, because, I mean, it's all well and good that this is a slightly newer system. It's got DDR3 RAM instead of DDR2, so it should be a little bit higher performance in that regard. It's got the better CPU and all of that, but really the big reason is I need to update the operating system anyway, and the one thing about Open Media Vault is that by default you cannot make a share on the what it calls the root file system, which is the root file system. You can't put a share onto the same drive that you have the operating system installed on you. You have to have an outboard drive, and on something like this, that's kind of, well, almost impossible, because there's only one space for a drive. So the solution for the initial setup was to just use a plug-in. Well, I'm running out of space on that now. It's a 1 terabyte drive, so I need to upgrade to 2 terabytes, and 2 terabytes is pretty expensive if you want to buy a drive, especially now that the prices have just kind of gotten ridiculous. So I intercepted the computer on its way to the trash, and I also intercepted this, which is working just fine. I don't really know why this got thrown out. It wasn't ours, I can tell you that, because I would never let something like that happen, but it's 2 terabyte. I have checked it. There's no bad sectors or anything like that. So here again, I'm not really sure why. I'm wondering if maybe the cable failed. I'm guessing it must have been the fact that the cable failed, because I did not get a cable with it. Fortunately, I had a Toshiba drive fail on me. Conveniently, another 2 terabyte drive. And I kept its cable, which is still good. So I could just put this on the other box and move the files over and call it a day, but I'm not going to do that because, number one, that seems like a pain on an Open Media Vault system, and number two, this thing has some USB 3.0 capability, where the other unit does not. It's USB 2.0 through and through. At least I think it is. It might have 3.0 on it, but I don't believe that it does. I think it's too old for that. So I'm going to get my install USB, we'll fire this thing back up, and install the operating system. Then I'm going to plug in this drive. Assuming this is configured correctly, and that the battery is not toasted. I guess I should have checked that before putting the cover back on, but this should just power itself on when I plug it in here. I want to do that on camera. It did. It does have an optical drive. Let's see, E box, pressing the F8 key. Oh, the battery is toasted. So that's annoying. I don't even think I have another battery. Actually, I know I don't have another battery, so... Huh. Well, it can't be that toasted, because the date and time is still correct, but... I'll go through this and check and make sure. If you want to know, there's the specification. 4 gigs of RAM. That is the latest BIOS for the machine. Can't update any further. I might just go through this on camera. I don't need the audio controller. I can turn that off. I'm going to turn the boot ROM on, and I'm going to turn the wireless off, because I don't need it. Power management configuration. I want it to power on. The rest of that's okay. Just take a quick look at the hardware monitor. CPU is not cool running, but it seems like it's working, so I'm not too worried about it. That should be fine, as long as it boots to the first hard drive anyway. That's all good. There's nothing in security, so we'll just go ahead and we'll save those changes and exit. Guess I'm going to be buying a battery for this, or maybe I'll just take the battery out of the other one, I don't know. We'll boot to the USB. Install. Should be the latest release. I've had this thing do some weird stuff, like the keyboard will stop working at the syslinux boot menu, which it didn't do in this case. Couldn't boot HDAT2 off of a USB stick because, again, it just wouldn't start. I had a problem with the PXE boot ROM. Wouldn't load the file until I modified the PXE server to delete the extraneous characters at the end of the boot ROM file requests, because apparently the network stack is buggy. But I think that's a common problem. I had a lot of Realtek systems that do the same thing. So I'll go through this install process. It shouldn't take too long, and I will be right back thanks to the magic of video editing. Even with an SSD, this really is not fast. And I think part of that is just the processor. I will note, however, that where the system was quite warm towards the back, like right around here when it had the hard drive in it, that is no longer the case. But yeah, like I said, as you can see, this is quite sluggish. The other thing that I have noticed is that this system does not have any LEDs for Lincoln activity. Alright, so we'll let this start. Hopefully it will actually start. There's no PC speaker, which is kind of annoying, but the existing system doesn't have a PC speaker either, so it's not like there's any loss on that. Be interesting to see what it gets if it does get an IP address. So we'll find it on my network and do some configuration. Okay, so let's go in here. Configure the dashboard. Let's grab the things that I want. We've got all of that. I believe is working. So, now we'll do our configuration. It's funny that I set this during... I mean, it's really funny that because I set the time zone during setup, but it seems to have completely ignored it. Which, I mean, good for it. Let's go ahead and put in our NTP server. Really need notification settings. I don't believe I need any plugins on this. File browser might be nice, but I'm not going to worry about any plugins. So, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply everything that I've done. Well, doggone it, this thing does not use a standard CMOS battery. It's got one of those stupid laptop-style soldered deals with a pigtail on it. So I'm going to have to see if I can get one of those, but hopefully for the time being it's not a big deal. And the other thing that ended up happening was when I was looking for a non-existent battery holder, I ended up breaking the tab on one of the RAM slots, so I hope that's not going to be a problem, but well, you know, you never know. Okay, come into storage and disks. You can see it's there. I'm going to wipe it. Yes. You do a quick wipe. So, there's that. You go to Smart. Make sure that this drive is monitored. Come down to the file systems. We are going to create a file system. Just need ext4 on this device. I've never really done this with a USB drive on Open Media Vault before, so it'll be interesting to see how this happens to work. Alright, mount. File system usage warning. 85% is probably fine. And we'll go ahead and we'll save and that, apply it. Hopefully that doesn't take too long. I've noticed that this machine is quite slow. It's actually very slow. I'm not really sure why it's so slow. The other one I think was faster. So this, like I said, is probably not the good idea that it didn't seem like it was. That took 2 minutes just to do that. So apparently this thing is getting extremely I/O bound. We'll just use the same name. We'll select that file system. Everyone is going to have read-write access because setting up the permissions is just a giant pain, so we'll just make it wide open. It's my network anyway. The only thing that's going to be on this network is stuff that's mine. If anything is untrustworthy, it's going on a different network, so go ahead and we'll apply that, and we'll see if that also takes 2 minutes. Alright, believe it or not, that actually wasn't too bad. For the sake of this bit, I'm going to go ahead and give that read-write access. Then I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to have to create my rsync tasks. Okay, we've got those in place. I'm also going to enable the server. For the time being, we're going to add a module. Let's see here. Should be good. We'll do that. We'll do this. We'll do that. And we'll add that module. We'll go back to the server message block. It's all turned on for now. It's not public, it's not read-only, it is browsable. We're going to do this, we'll turn on the recycle bin. And we'll do that, we'll save it. And now this should be set up exactly the same way as the other box. Good, we'll apply those changes. And see what happens. Okay, again, that took about 2 minutes, which is really kind of bad. Look at that CPU utilization too, just loading this front page. Why is the smart status unknown on an external device? I'm monitoring it, so why are we set it unknown? Like, that's kind of dumb. Actually, that's extremely dumb, but whatever. Okay, let's come to Mr. rsync here, and we'll go ahead and set this up. Hopefully this is going to work. And we're off. Data is being copied over. And you can see there. Stuff is happening. So that's going to probably take forever because that's almost an entire terabyte of data that needs to be moved over to this. Okay, so step 1. Let's grab this MAC address. I'm going to have to re-log in here on this. Okay, DHCP server on the LAN side. Did something turn itself off? No, I think it's fine. Okay. Scroll down. This is the box I need to edit. We will paste the MAC address from the new box there. Save it. Apply it. Power down the new machine. Well, it's in place. And because nothing can ever go right, it wasn't exactly smooth sailing. Put it in there and it worked great. I went to change the host name to the permanent host name, and it completely murdered itself, and I had to come in here and rescue it. What a shock that Linux can't even handle the changing of a host name properly in the year 2026. But it's there, it's online, it's running, and I've got the old unit out. Look at how dirty this thing is. Ugh. It's covered in dirt. That fan at the back, for a while it was quite noisy. I mean, look at that. Yeah, this is going to need some serious cleaning. I'm going to keep it around in its current configuration for at least a little while. That way, if something happens to the new box, which I highly doubt is going to happen. Okay. Well, actually, it's not nearly as bad in here as I thought it was going to be. I think I'm going to have to pause the camera again, though, because I know I'm going to have to take this optical drive out of here. So I want to take a look inside. Oh, yeah, you can see it on that right there. Yum, yum. Yummy, yummy, delicious dirt. That's, I don't remember when I put this in service, but it's been a while. I can definitely tell you that. But it's surprisingly actually not nearly as bad in here as I thought it was going to be. It's really only just on the SATA connection that it's particularly bad. 2 RAM slots. This one at least has a proper connection point for the battery, but I could take this outside and blow it with the air compressor and it would be almost perfect. I would like to put this back into use and repurpose this. Yeah, that fan turns. It's not frozen solid, so I don't know. What I would use it for, again, I don't really know. It's got a 1 terabyte hard drive in it. It does have 2 serial ATA ports, but you can really only use 1 for a hard drive anyway. But yeah, it definitely needs to, desperately, to have it cleaned. I don't think there's any electrolytic capacitors on this motherboard either. They're all solid state. That's impressive. Well, this looks like it's a little bit broken. Well, hopefully it's still actually making good contact with that. I never had any issues with this machine. It was always stable, but you know, there we go. There's the old box. Yeah, the new one running just fine, although it is, like I suspected, it's not much faster than the old one. It's still pretty sluggish. But as long as it holds up and it's reliable, and I don't have any issues with it, I don't really care. I needed the extra storage space, and I got the extra storage space, so that's it for the video. I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you have any comments, feel free to leave them below.